Hey everyone, so today we're going to be learning how to use Git and GitHub. I know Git and GitHub are kind of confusing for a lot of beginners to learn because it uses work in the terminal, but trust me, once you get the hang of it, it's an amazing tool. We use it for our own Bennett repo to collaborate on stuff. We can track changes, see who's working on stuff, and it's really just great all around. And the sooner you can get it working, the sooner you get the hang of it, the sooner you're able to work on our own files and projects and all this great stuff. So the first thing you want to understand is what exactly is Git. Git is what's known as a version control system, and that's just fancy word that it's saying that it's something that is used to track changes across a project. So I think the best way to understand Git is to figure out the problem that it's trying to solve. So let's say we have a file. We'll call it myfile.py. And you have all these changes. This is your program that you're working on. And you want to create a new feature. But you still want to have the old file just in case you ever want to go back to it. What you might do is you might make a copy of this file, might rename it so it doesn't conflict to myfile2, and then you can add your changes over here. You can do whatever you want. And that works. It's a little bit sketchy, but you have both files, you have both changes. Let's say you want to add a third program. You can name this one maybe like myfile3.py. And then maybe you want to change this original file, but you don't want to name it myfile3 because it doesn't add on to 3, it adds on to 1. So you can have to call it maybe myfilenew.py or myfilechanged. And you can see the problem here, right? Because you have all these files, none of them are very descriptive. Like the names aren't very helpful. You just have 1, 2, 3 changed. And also, if you want to figure out where you created an old feature or where a bug is happening or all this stuff, you're going to have to try to bounce around between these different files, figuring out where the heck what you want is at. So the solution is what's known as Git. Git by itself is something that works locally on your computer. Git and GitHub are separate. We'll talk about that later, but they are separate things, right? We'll just talk about Git for now. This is what works on your computer, on your laptop, whatever. I can't draw today. What? On your laptop, right? And this is what's storing all these changes in the files. So let's say you have this file, myfile.py. You have all this stuff, and you want to change it, but you also want to save the old version. So what you might do is you go to Git and you say, hey, make me a commit. And what a commit is it's just Git saving the current status of the project. And what Git stores somewhere else is a whole list of changes in the project. And every time you ask it for a new thing, it'll extend the list and add the changes. So when you make so now, what you can do is you can add the changes to this original file. You don't have to make a new file. And you can add even more changes. You could add all this great stuff here. Let's say you want to go back to this original version of the file over here. What you can do is you can ask Git, hey, can I see this old file? And Git will spit back to you what you had saved before, so you can work on it, and you can see how this can become useful because you can save, track, and store all the different versions of the file in this long list of commits. So now that you kind of understand how Git works, let's look at a more in-depth example. So let's say you have this giant folder, not a file, a whole folder. We'll call it Git tutorial. Inside here, you can have a bunch of little files, maybe like my file, and then file, let's call it file 2, 3, and then maybe you have like another folder with its own files inside of here, right? It doesn't matter, you can make it as complicated as you want to, but what matters is that you have this giant folder on your computer with the entire project that you're working on. So if you want to make this a Git repository, what you do is you ask Git, hey, make this a Git repository. So you say Git init. Init stands for initialize. And what that does is it takes this entire folder and makes it a Git repository, and it will start tracking changes in the little list of commits that we have here. Right? Let's call this commits. So let's say you change my file, right? You have the stuff. You can ask Git to save it. Hey Git, give me commit 1. So what Git will do is it'll save the entire state of the project. It'll save the entire thing, and we'll call it commit 1, right? And let's say you save my file 2, you change that a little bit, right? Git will save this entire project with the new changes as commit 2. And it'll store everything you did beforehand as well. So it'll save all the changes you did to my file 2, all this stuff. And slowly, as you add more changes, the commit list grows, and you have this list of commits that you can go back to and change whenever you want. Which is great, because if you ever realize, like you're working on commit 4 and like, oh shoot, this isn't working, I gotta go back to 3, you can ask Git, and it'll go back to 3 for you with no problem. So really quickly, before I actually show you how to use Git on your computer, I'm going to explain a few things. One is that Git, when it stores your entire folder, Git tutorial, it doesn't take all the storage. It doesn't copy this multiple times over. It doesn't keep doing that. It just tracks the changes, and it figures out where to place them in the file. So you don't have to worry about taking a lot of storage up with Git. All Git does is it tracks the changes over time, and it doesn't take the entire thing. It kind of does, but not really. You don't have to worry about it too much. Just the one thing you don't have to worry about is it taking too much storage. And the other thing you have to figure out is that commits are not ordered from 1, 2, 3, 4. They have an order, right? There's an order of commits in the timeline. But what Git does, it gives them like a random name, like a bunch of random characters, like A, 6, E, 1, 3, Y. Like, you're not going to know what it is. It's completely random. It's kind of long. But it's useful because you're never going to have the same random string of numbers, right? And you can go back on it without worrying about messing up the timeline. Let's say you go from 4 to 2, but you want to keep 3, then it'll jump from like 1 to 4, and it'll be like a giant mess if there's just a bunch of numbers. So Git uses random generated strings or text basically. So now on your computer you want to do two things. One, you want to install Git, and you want to create a GitHub account. So to install Git, go to git-scm.com and go to the downloads right here. And if you're on Windows, do this. If you're on Mac, do this. And if you're using Linux, you probably already know how to do this, but click the Linux download. And you also want to go to github.com and create a GitHub account. It's pretty easy. Enter your email address. You might have to verify it. But once that's set up, you should be good to go. Alright, now you guys should be set up pretty well. So what we want to do is we want to create a new folder. I'm going to call it Git Learning. You can call it whatever you want. You can put it wherever you want. And this is going to be where we're going to make our first Git repository. So first, I'm just going to make some new files. I'm going to call it, let's see, hello git.txt, and then hello world.txt. It'll be pretty simple. And then here we'll say hello git, and then here we'll say hello world. Alright, so we have an empty folder with some files on our computer. Now we want to make this a Git repository. So this is where it starts to get tricky, because this is when you're going to have to start using the command line, which people are scared of, but trust me, it's not that hard. What you want to do is start a command prompt inside this directory right here, and the easiest way to do that, or here, the most obvious way to do that, is to go into the corner, search CMD for command prompt, press enter, and that should open the command prompt right here. So now, if you want to change, because right now we're in this directory, user/acer, so we want to change to this directory. So the command for that is cd, change directory, space, and then just paste that in, right? And then we should be right into this directory. So now we're ready to start using git, right? The easier way to do that is to go here, make sure it's blue, and just type in the word cmd, enter. And that should open it right in this folder right away. Makes it a lot easier. You don't have to worry about anything. You can also go to the store, Microsoft Store, search for Windows Terminal, and install that. And the only reason you'd ever do this is because you can customize it and it looks a lot better. And so that's why I'm going to use it, because look, it's nice and snazzy, you know. There you go. So now I'm in this directory, and we're going to start a new Git repository. So if you set up Git correctly, all you have to do, let me expand this a little bit, is type git init, and that should create an empty Git repository. You might not see this hidden folder that shows up over here. I have hidden folders turned on. Let's see, hidden items, so that'll show up even though it's hidden. If you want to, you don't have to see it. You're not supposed to mess with this. You don't really want to change this unless you need to and you know what you're doing. But we just created a Git repository. So now that you have this Git repository, we'll make our first changes and then we'll add it as a commit, right? So we'll go, let's go to this file. We'll change it from hello Git to hey Git. So we change the file, and it's a little bit different now. Now, when we go to Git, we want to commit the changes we just made. So what we might do is we might say git commit, and then you want to add a message, right? You want to let the person know what you changed. So you're going to do -m. Let me expand this to full screen so you can see it better. Git commit -m, m for message, and then you want to add your message. You want to say changed hello Git to say hello or hey Git. Here's the problem. Git doesn't know what to commit. When you commit something, you have to tell it what you want to commit first. And the easiest way to do that is to do git add star, asterisk, whatever you want to call it. And it'll add everything. Every single file that has been changed in this folder will be added to the next list of stuff to commit. You can also do git add. You can do the file by itself. You can add them one by one. But unless you were trying to hide certain files, unless you have like secret information, the easiest thing to do is just do git add star, and that'll add everything that you want to add will be added to the commit list. So now what you can do is you can commit all the stuff you've added, and you can see that it changed it and added a commit, and everything's good to go. So now that you have your first commit, let's add another one just for fun. Let's do hello world. We'll call this hello world exclamation point. How are you doing? Save it. Close. I'm gonna go here. Don't forget you want to add all the files. So let's do. We don't actually have to add all of them. We could just do git add hello world.txt because that's the only thing we changed. And then we could do git commit -m for message. I'll just do changed file. I'm lazy. I don't feel like typing out a whole commit message, okay? Enter. There you go. One file changed, one insertion, one deletion. That's saying that you inserted one thing, and you deleted one thing. So this by itself is already pretty cool, but once you connect it to GitHub, it becomes so much better. So let's explain what GitHub is basically. So you see this Git repository I have right here? GitHub is basically this Git repository, but it's stored in the cloud. It's stored on some servers that Git hosts, and the reason this is cool is because I can work on my own changes, right? I can add my own stuff. Hey Git, blah blah. But my friends living thousands of miles away, wherever they are, they can also add their own changes to their Git repository, and we can work on one repository that's in the cloud. If you can think of it almost like a Google Docs. Like let's say you have a Google Docs with your friends. You have one Google Doc, one friend is taking notes, right? And one friend's at home. The friend at home can work on the notes as well as you who's at school, because it's all stored in the cloud. It's not stored on your machine, it's all stored in the cloud. So if you go on GitHub, here's our example. This is the Bennett repository. It might change by the time you see this, but this is what it's at right now. And it's a little bit familiar, but a little bit strange. So here's what you don't have to worry about. Don't worry about any of this. All these are great features, but for a beginner, you don't have to worry about them. What you want to focus on is all this code over here, and then the commits. So you can see, if I click the commits, this is our list of commits for this repository. And these are the messages that we have. I think Kaden needs to make better messages instead of just update. No, I'm just kidding. But you can see all the commits that we have. You can go older. We probably have quite a few, so we don't have to worry about seeing all of them. And this is the list of commits. This is going in time. You can see it gets older. So this is 9 days ago. As I scroll up, it should go up to like 8 days ago, maybe 7 days ago. Maybe a little bit more. 14 hour. Yeah, you see how it goes older to newer? Anyway, so you have the commits over here that you can see. And you also have all the code that is stored on here that you can see whenever you want. So let's say I want to see, sure, hello world.py. You can see all this code is here. And you can edit the files from Git online, but I wouldn't do that because it's like, you can't run the programs online. So you have to you're not able to test it. You're just blindly hoping that it works. So if I make like one mistake, like let's say I forget to add the quotation marks, then this program is broken, and anyone that tries to bring it to their computer, it won't work. So you want to edit the programs on your computer in your own Git repository, and then what you want to do is you want to send it over to GitHub, where GitHub can hold it, and then your friends can pull it back to their machine. Let's cancel that. Go back here. So what you want to do now is you want to download this cloud repository onto your machine so you can work on it, add changes, whatever you want, right? So how do you take this thing that's in the cloud, this is not on your computer, and download it to your repository or to your local machine? What you can do is go here, go to HTTPS, copy this link, there's a copy button right here, and you can use this link to clone it to your machine. So what you can do is you can open the folder once more. Let's go to Git Learning. And you can go to CMD. And here, what you want to do is you want to clone it to your computer. So you want to type in git clone for cloning, and you want to paste that link. And what that'll do, oh, by the way, off camera, I deleted these files in here. So I removed everything, including the empty.git thing. So the thing that was hidden, it's not here anymore. See, I deleted that as well. I basically removed the entire Git repository. So you want to git clone all this stuff. It'll take a while because it has to get it off the internet. And as you can see, I made the file Bennett, which is the exact same name as this file, like this folder right here. This now is its own Git repository on our computer. You can see it has the .git, it has JS, Python, .git ignored, it has all this good stuff. So let's say I want to edit Python on my computer. Let's go to, let's make a new file instead. Go to Bennett. We'll create a new. Let's call a folder. We'll call it Git tutorial. Open this up, and a new file. We'll call it Git tutorial. Let's call it git.txt. And here we'll say, hey, save, close. Here. So now, how do we take this new feature that we added, the Git tutorial folder, and push it onto here, right? Well, what you want to do is you want to open CMD. See, this is in the wrong folder right now. You actually want to cd into Bennett, because that's the folder with the Git repository. This holds the folder that is the Git repository, if that makes sense to you. Now that we're into Bennett, we want to do a couple things. We want to push the changes from here onto there. So the command for that is just git push. But this won't work because there's nothing to push. Everything is up to date because we forgot to commit. And don't forget that before we commit, we also have to do an add. So git add star. Now we can do git commit. Let's say that the message is added a tutorial folder. Now we committed it. It's ready to be pushed. Now what we can do is we can do git push. You can see it's taking a while. It loaded. Now when we reload, we'll see the new folder over here. Now, there's a whole heap of errors that can happen during this entire process. So if something gets wrong, something gets messed up, it doesn't work, then just ask one of us. We'll be happy to help you. But for most people, this should be just fine. As you can see, it pushed everything to the Git repo. So let's try one more thing. We'll go to Git tutorial, create a new folder, file. Actually, let's change this one. Hey, Git, what's up? Save that. Close. Close. We're still. Let's clear this so you guys can see it better. Oh shoot, it doesn't work. Give me a second. Git add star. Add all the changes. Git commit -m changed file. Git push. Three commands. Git add to tell you what you want to commit, git commit to actually commit it, and git push to actually push the commits. And now, if I reload this page, it should say, hey Git, what's up? Now that this is all set up, let's go over some possible errors that might occur. So one thing that might happen, let's say that you are working on this program, right? And you're working on it over multiple days. It's super long, it's super hard. You're programming and it takes so many days to finally finish. But one day you finally finish, right? And you're ready to commit it. And what you find is that someone else has already changed the files that are here, right? All the files here have already been changed. Let's say, let's do this real quick. Let's do add file. Don't worry about this. Let's just say changed stuff.txt change. So that someone else, which is actually myself, let's pretend it's someone else, has added some new stuff, right? And you also added your own new stuff over here in git.txt, right? Let's say you want to add it, so you want to do git add star git commit -m super difficult feature. Yeah, you get the point, right? Now when you go to push it, here's what we'll have. It'll be rejected. Error. Failed to push some refs to this. Updates were rejected because the remote contains work that you do not have locally. That's weird. Because they changed this stuff over here, it won't let you push because you have to add this stuff to your own machine before you can push it again. So how do you do that? That's called pulling. So what you do is you go into here and you want to get all the changes that happened over here. So you type git pull. That'll take a little bit, but now everything that has been changed in the cloud we put into your own folder right here. You see, it added this, it pulled everything. And now that everything on your machine, your computer is up to date, now you can do git push and it'll work just fine. Now if I go to git.txt, it has all these new stuff. So that should be about it. If you need any help, there's a great YouTube video. There's a playlist by this guy, and he makes some great videos. And I know it says it's Git and GitHub for poets, but that's more of like a thumbnail clickbait kind of thing. He's basically teaching the average everyday person how to use Git and GitHub, and it's a great series, and it really helps to understand this better. And if you ever get an error that you don't know how to solve, just talk to me or one of the other moderators, and we might be able to help you out. Thanks, guys.